Good job on keeping exactly on time. So definitely you all practicing what you're preaching there about time management. So I will introduce Jennifer and she will quickly introduce the panel. You've seen their bios already, so we're not going to spend much time on that. So Jennifer has been in the industry more than 35 years. She's a consultant geologist now, but she's had many different roles in the field of geoscience, organizational behavior, and various other areas. So Jennifer, you could probably quickly introduce the rest of the panel.
Okay, in the interest of time, all I'm going to do is to speak to the most recent job of each of the panelists. So we have Hayden Romano. He's currently MD of the EMA. We have Derek Hudson, who is business advisor to Shell and chairman of Scotiabank. We have Lynn, who's a geologist at Touchstone. Nicolette, who's an entrepreneur. So I was really glad that you all touched on that during your talk. And Derek Smith, who's executive chairman of V. Smith and Associates Petroleum Consultants and director of Professional Petroleum Services Limited. We tried, everybody you will notice have a basic geoscience degree, and all of them have used it as a foundation to build their career. And so we're really glad this evening to have them with you to share some of their experiences and how they use that foundation to branch off into different things. Javed?
All right, thanks a lot, Jennifer. So guys, we're glad to have all of you here. We know there's been a lot of discussions for most of the day for the people listening on. So thank you very much for that as well. And we hope to really kind of have a little quick discussion here. Some of the people on the panel, like Jennifer said, we all have a background in geology or geoscience. We've probably all practiced in the oil and gas industry at some point in time. And some of us remain in the industry in different roles, so we diversify within the industry, and some of us have also diversified completely out of it, right? So the first kind of question I'll put out, and I think I'll direct this first at Derek Smith, is how did you move out from geology or your geoscience background into your current areas of business? And if you could just tell us a couple of the, not all the businesses, Derek, because you have plenty of businesses, but a couple of the different areas of business that you do. You're on mute.
First of all, am I on? Are you hearing me?
Yep, you're good.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. First of all, let me just back up a little bit and tell you that I have been a geologist for 44 years, and I did special geology at university and then did a master's. But during my stay at the university, I got to realize that I needed to survive. And most of us who were not privy to things like scholarships and things like that, this is where the birth of my ideas came from. I had to survive because my parents were going through stuff that I do not wish to speak about. So I had to find ways of paying my way through. And most of the times, students who do their degrees overseas, not in Trinidad where the tuition and things are free at UE, you just have to pay for the hall and things like that. We had to pay for everything at Jamaica, where I did my first degree in geology, special geology. So I had to do things. I was looking how to get food. So I went into there was an organization in the hall, and I became the food committee chairman. And I was looking actually for things to do to make money. I became the halls and the university's photographer. So there from the start, from the get-go, I was not only doing geology, if you understand. I got involved in different aspects of the arts. I used to sing. I used to prepare shows. My colleagues will let you know that. I even had the ex-president being a backup singer to me. And I continue up to today. So I'm telling you, I'm showing you the linkages from the start to where I am today. I think that's very important. When I came out of university, of course, I did my degree and project work in Trinidad. First person to do it in Trinidad. So I actually dived into the business, finding oil and gas. And that was successful, and the rest was history. But the same thought process, we used to get $1,250 a month. I think that's very important. Maybe you say that at that time was a lot of money. It wasn't. So I also had to find other things to do to make money so I could survive. And I think what we're talking about is surviving today. What did I do? I went into training dogs because I like doing that. There's no course that you go and do to learn to train dogs. You buy the books and you learn. And then from dogs, I went into security. I used to do work. I used to do work of a guard, me, geologist, in my spare time to make money. Then I continued with photography. And then one thing led to the other. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go into the security business. And I sent my father bazooka because I spent so much money on you to be the geologist, the number one geologist and all that. But just like one of the previous speakers said, when you go to an interview, all of us have the same degree. Some of us may be better than the other in terms of research. I used to be a American Association of Petroleum Geologists. All these different organizations, I would join and educate myself further. So I educated the platform who are higher and higher and higher. So I'm always ahead of the pack. But that didn't make more money for me. I had to make money. So I went into the security business. And like I said, people never knew I was a geologist and still don't know up to today. Only the right ones know. I kept the business alive. So I'm going to try and see if I can summarize this thing real fast. But along the journey of forming all the different businesses, which one led into the other, the point I'm trying to make is that when you are in university, everybody studies the same thing. Maths, physics, chem. Everybody has the same basis. So if you specialize, you're going into a certain area, you're actually specializing with the same foundation. The foundation is what will send you off into different businesses. Unless you have a talent, and I know my son is listening, because he's a geologist too. And when he told me he was going to do geology, I said, are you crazy? But, I was going into business. And I am now convincing him that the market, I have predicted that this oil business, with the glut on the international stage, is causing the price to drop. When the price is dropping, the businesses, it's going to impact on businesses. And what you're seeing happening, people sending home people, let's be real. There's not going to be a demand for geologists as before. So I'm going to be very real. And this is what propelled me into using whatever skill sets I had. And I want to compliment Bonnie Rambajan. That piece of dissertation we just got there talks about competencies and that sort of thing. But I have friends who did geology and they're doing landscaping now. They're doing politics now. Well, you know the two politicians, right? One became prime minister. Second one is prime minister. We had people doing market photography and all the. Do not limit yourself. Is my point. This is what has caused my success in forming a group of business. So what I want to do is, I want to make sure that the geologists, the young geologists who I didn't have the course to meet, because I do a lot of correct guidance for my alma mater, and I do it in business rather than geology now. Do not limit yourself to just looking for a job in what we will call the petroleum industry, what we know as oil and gas. For example, in my security business, my biggest clients are in the downstream. So I examined that as well to see if there were opportunities for like engineering geology, for what you call geotechnical kind of work, hydrogeology. There are certain areas that you can still get into in terms of your geology degree, hydrogeology, geotechnical work, things like that. Government needs, Junior Assami needs people to examine the earth before they build a bridge, etc., etc., etc. I don't want to go into too much. I need a whole session just like Rambajan to talk, but I'm going to try and encapsulate it very quickly. So what was Derek Smith's success? Derek Smith's success was looking outside of the blinkers. This is geology. This is oil and gas. What can I do Every single person has a talent. It is not limited to geology. Let me say that again. Every single geologist that listening to me now has a talent. My son could cook. And I tell him, make sure he listen to what I'm saying here, because I have a restaurant and I need a cook. The next son is an entertainment man. We have 2 clubs. So therefore, I see opportunity in a different lens, from a different lens. And some people say I'm a Syrian. I am not no Syrian. I just see things with a different lens. So I develop them. Right now, I am going into the food business, and beside my restaurant, I'm going to sell on the street because people like to eat more on the street. So all the different businesses that I am in is because of a necessity to make money so that I could have a comfortable life, my children could have a comfortable life. But I want to say one thing here, and it's going to be a little controversial. I was a COVID victim. I almost died. That if you don't understand that what you have, whatever competencies you have, talents that you have, how to turn that into a business, you have to have faith in the one who presented you with these talents. If you don't have faith, I am sounding like a preacher now, I don't care. If you don't have faith and you don't have that deep-seatedness inside of you, you will go nowhere fast, because God gives you the faith, and it make you wonderfully well, as the preacher would say, that you are not only limited to geology or whatever aspect of engineering that you have. You could go and plant food, you can go into grocery, you could go into transport business. You have to go inside of here, take off the blinkers, the geological blinkers, straight away, and say, God, give me a different lens. And I think that is my contribution this evening. I want to say to the presenters before I used today to listen to their presentations, and I think they were fantastic. I want to compliment them, and I wish I got more time like them to be able to coach.
Well, Derek, we could give you a whole session next time, you know.
I would like
that could be arranged.
I made that. In all seriousness,
We can do that.
I cannot trace all that I wanted to say in 10 minutes. There's no way. It's like trying to ask Mr. Rambajan, to talk in 10 minutes. I have 7 companies that are totally outside and still continuing to build, that totally have no relationship to geology whatsoever. But in some of them, like hotel and things, some of them are interwoven into the fabric of the petroleum business, where I provide special type of facilities for like seminars, like conferencing center, that sort of thing for the same geologists and the same. That's how I started my hotel. I used to use my consultants. I used to make more money doing that rather than from the consultancy. So
Derek, we will have to cut you there to move on to the other Derek, because the other Derek is firmly, he's been country manager of Shell before. He is still working in Shell in a very large capacity, I'm sure. And Shell is one of those companies who has announced that they are, oil and gas may not be the main driver in their future, right? Similar to BP. So I wanted to get a little idea from Mr. Derek Hudson about what you think is happening with this energy transition, and what you see the role of geoscientists being in general, but specifically in TNT, and how they can better utilize their skills, or what advice you have for them.
Thanks, David, and afternoon all. I think in the first place, I'd like to take a segue from the comments that my namesake was just making. And he always likes to chat before me. So thanks very much for you all giving him the opportunity to do that. Okay. One is a commentary that a university degree or any sort of academic profession that you have really provides you with the analytical and thought skills to take your career forward. And therefore, then you could start in geology and you could branch off to wherever you wish to go. Okay, and they will. I mean, in essence, I'm proud to say I'm a geologist. The fact is that I've not really practiced any real geology since about 1990, about more than 20 something years ago when I started to go into leadership roles. I think that the energy transition provides a lot of opportunities for people to branch off into things. And I think that people obviously need to look beyond oil and gas. They're very sort of infant hydrogen projects started now in Trinidad. We have, I tried for a long time to get a solar energy project going. It really hasn't gotten off the ground. Hopefully it will start getting constructed shortly. But there are two things. Those are the opportunities in Trinidad. I think there are opportunities all of the Caribbean and elsewhere. I think that people got to stop looking. I mean, albeit that as a result of the pandemic, we have travel restrictions and that sort of thing right now. But people need to look beyond just the shores of Trinidad and Tobago for opportunities. I've worked in about 3 or 4 different countries myself. And, some of them, the experience of just being there was worth more than actually some of the cultural experiences was probably worth more than some of the professional experiences that you picked up. I would say one thing, though, that is a little bit different, because I've had this conversation in times past when we've gone through, since in my days with Jennifer and Derek and in the old Trintopec days and in Petrotrin, we go through these cycles. One of the challenging things about the energy industry is that, or the oil and gas industry, is we consistently go through these cycles of boom and bust, and people suffer. And it's interesting, we have this mantra about people are our most important resource, and then from the time we get into some sort of challenging period, we start to talk about getting rid of people, and we're going through this cycle again in the energy industry. And therefore, then I've had these conversations with people as to when you go through this cycle, how you prepare yourself for other things, how you look for other opportunities. And it's not easy. And actually, the pandemic actually makes it a lot more difficult, because we actually have no template in the last how many years to think through what this really means for many of us, and how we will grab at opportunities coming out of it. So it requires some additional thought that none of us actually, I can't throw back and say, I've had this experience and here's how you do it. I say to my colleague in Shell who has taken over from me that, my apologies, but I have never actually led an organization through a pandemic. And, we have had instances where people work at home for a few weeks and maybe a month and a half, but not for a year and a half, which is completely different. And likewise for the folks listening to this conversation, because many of them, if they're going through this whole period of thinking about what are the other opportunities, they struggle to actually get an exchange of sitting down with their colleagues in a work environment and feeding off of each other. That is taken away from them in this environment. So a lot of it has to be, you have to have that discussion with yourself. But so it's difficult for me to come up with any panacea of saying that the energy transition will form. The energy transition is there. It will happen. It will happen whether we like it or not, because the companies will make it happen just simply to survive. If Shell and BP and Chevron and others and ExxonMobil, in spite of Guyana, if they don't do it, they won't survive. Okay, it's simply, people will not be, large hedge funds and other things will not buy your shares unless you really adapt to the energy transition in a program. So it will happen. So therefore, people got to be prepared for it. I've just been invited to do something at the University of the West Indies. I think that I am not too sure that the university is actually preparing people for it. There's always a sort of shortfall in it. So I would advise people to look at other opportunities to see how they can prepare themselves with. But the one thing that we'll add and wrap up here is when the opportunity comes, grasp it with both hands. Do not be hesitant. It's the reason I got out. I didn't get out of geology for the same reason I did. I was simply given an opportunity to go to the UK, and I had to choose between staying in going to be exploration manager in Egypt or being business development manager in the UK business, and I chose the latter. Not because I had any sort of fantastic intellectual thought that this will take my career in a different area or thing like that. It was simply an opportunity arose and I thought I should take it. And that would be my big advice to people here. When it happens, take it. Don't be afraid of going through the eye of the needle and saying, there's something completely different. Let me try it and see how it will work. But I do admit, albeit this is a different time without any sort of, precedent for how to deal with it.
I appreciate the comments a lot, Derek. I mean, some of my personal experience as well is that, as you're saying this, we think we know the energy sector because we know BP and we know Shell and we know some of the drilling companies and so on. In TNT alone, there are hundreds of companies operating in the energy sector, hundreds of them, right? Small, big, in all different areas from upstream to downstream in different areas, across the board, right? And a lot of the times we don't spend enough time understanding the supply chain, really understanding where things link up, what happens, who makes the different things happen. We just think about rigs and we think about seismic boats and we think about operators and we don't really see all the other parts of the puzzle. And advice to all the young professionals here is that that is something you need to pay attention to, the supply chain, and learn as much about it as you can. I'll ask Hayden to give some comments now. Hayden is managing director of the EMA. And a lot of people may also not be aware the integral role the EMA plays in all drilling operations, right? In all oil and gas operations, and in fact, with all operations in the country on any scale at all. So Hayden, some comments on how you got into the EMA and any advice you have?
Well, thank you, Javed. Thank you, GSTT, for having me. And I mean, if I describe Derek Smith as having an entrepreneurial spirit, I will describe myself as having a restless spirit. So therefore, I found myself in a number of different places throughout my career, starting in a research institute, Institute of Marine Affairs with Derek Smith, and then moving into, after doing my second degree, which was in engineering geology, moving to a consulting firm, then moving into manufacturing, then moving back into consulting, then moving again into manufacturing, and now finally, I mean, into a regulatory authority. And I think this is the closest I've been to petroleum. And maybe, I mean, and I think, I mean, people like Derek Hudson, Derek Smith, Jennifer, have to take some responsibility for making persons feel that geology was only petroleum. Because geology has never been only petroleum. Geoscience is so much. We have all these problems with these clays in the south and these massive landslides all these years. Where are the geologists? Where are the geologists doing the work in terms of coming up with solutions to these problems? And I think we are to be blamed for that. I mean, because we haven't convinced people like the Ministry of Works and the various consultants of the need for geologists. Water is a significant issue throughout this country. The petroleum geologists, of course, know where all the water is because you go through the water when you're exploring for oil. But how come we don't have that information, and how come that information is not being used? I mean, and geologists are not being fully involved in terms of these activities. So there are lots of opportunities for geologists, but somehow or the other, I think we need to convince the decision makers about these opportunities. We all know, I mean, the uncertainty that we are going through. And uncertainty, I mean, this is new, as Derek Hudson said, brand new. None of us have gone through a pandemic before. But this pandemic has brought out so many opportunities. So many of us are now working remotely, which, I mean, some of us felt could not have happened. But remote work means that we now have opportunities for working remotely from any part in the world. And therefore, there are now opportunities, if we network properly, to be involved in projects throughout the world, maybe starting with our own region. There are lots of opportunities at this time in Guyana, I mean, because of what is happening there. but there are also opportunities throughout the Caribbean with respect to infrastructure development, because infrastructure is critical in any economic recovery. So, you know, as I said, you know, so my restlessness is what allowed me to grasp opportunities. When somebody told me, listen, you know, we need somebody to run something or to do something, I mean, it's gonna be a challenge, I readily accepted. And therefore, when this last challenge in terms of the EMA, I was working with a conglomerate, and a headhunter called me and said to me, you know, we have an opportunity for you. Are you interested? And I said at first, you know, wow, boy, at this stage, do I really want to do that? And then I grasped the opportunity. You know, I went through the process and grasped the opportunity. So there are opportunities, I would say, out there. Not all of us have that entrepreneurial spirit that Derek has. However, I mean, we are trained scientists, and therefore we understand the scientific method, and we could use that method in any area. Oh, but we have to have the passion. Is your passion people? Do you want to get into people, into HR? Is your passion science? Is your passion teaching? Do you want to go and start lecturing to people and develop courses for people to understand whatever issue there might be? What is your passion? And I think once you recognize your passion and you follow your passion, I think it's going to be so much easier. My passion is challenge. I want the challenge. And sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. So I think I want to stop there to give somebody else an opportunity.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Hayden. I'd like to ask Nicolette to follow that question on passion. So you've come out of geology and you have followed your passion and you have essentially become an entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, of course, I think everybody would know by now that this passion came from being retrenched. I worked in Preceding for 6 years. And before I got pregnant, I'm a mom of one. Before I got pregnant, I had lost some weight, and one of my co-workers at Preceding, she introduced me to oat flour pancakes, and I was like, wow, this is really, really good. This is a really good breakfast substitute. So I started having these oat flour pancakes every day, and I realized I lost a lot of weight. And then when I got pregnant, I had my daughter. All my daughter knows is oat flour pancakes. Give her a normal pancake and she's going to spit it out. So when I became retrenched, 2 months after, I asked my her father, I said, why are we not getting oat flour on the market? The only oat flour we're getting on the market is expensive. It's like $60 a pound. And we are people who, I mean, our generation loves convenience. We like to go to the supermarket. We want to pick up things that are ready made. We don't have time to do everything. And I can't be spending every weekend grinding up oats into flour to make different types of food, right? So he said, you know what, you need to go out there and you need to go and do some market research. Go to all your supermarkets. You have time on your hands now. Go out there and just look at the shelves. And I came back and I said, I'm really not seeing oat flour that is accessible. So I bought some little mills that I had at home. I bought some oats and I started to mill oats right in the kitchen. And I packaged them and I sent it out to friends and family. And I said, listen, I'm giving you all something called oat flour. They were like, what is that? What is that? I said, it's just oats milled into flour. Try it out in different recipes. Give me some feedback. Because I come from a family who loves to cook. My aunts love to cook. And I started getting recipes to make puffs and waffles. And I got different types of pictures. And I said, yes, this is it. And I put it all together. I put the company together. I got to work. I got all my legal documents. I went through all my food and drug process, everything. And I started to introduce it to supermarkets and they were on the shelves from August 2019. And it all came from that passion of I just love to cook. I come from a family of, loving to cook. And that was just it. That set it there. And I spent a year developing the other products that I have on the shelf now, which are quick mixes. I have a vegan oat pancake mix, an oat pancake mix, and a vegan oat chocolate cake mix, where all these you just add 1 cup of water. The vegan oat chocolate, you add 1 cup of water and a 1/3 cup of oil. The oat pancake mix, you just add 1 cup of water. And I put it out there on the market in January. I started to stock my first few supermarkets, and I would get like tremendous reviews. People would be sending me messages. People would call. They say, this is the best thing. And what I do is I tap into the market of making it accessible, because we are right now, as everyone mentioned before, we are going through a little downtime, and the pandemic has not made it any better. And it does not mean that people should just give up healthy eating. We know that in Trinidad and Tobago, health foods, they all have their special area in the supermarkets, and they are incredibly expensive. And I wanted to make a difference where somebody could be able to grab a box of my mix for $20-something and put healthy breakfast on the table for their kids. And that is exactly what I did. And I get a lot of mothers commenting, they're saying that, it's really good. And I have my daughter. She was the inspiration, because she's just in love with those pancakes, and the passion, my passion came from just making people happy. And we are about to launch some new products that we're going to also put out on the shelf. One, well, is simple products, which would be instant oats and rolled oats. So we're packaging those and going to put those out. And then we have another one, which is a mix that I developed with instant oats and some like a blend. And, it's just to make things very convenient and healthy. That's the focus. So the passion just comes from just the feedback that you get, that you're doing an okay job. You're doing a good job. Keep going.
And Nicolette, I have a question for you. From the time that you purchased your first mill and you started to do this thing to the time you got it on the shelf in the first supermarket, how long was that?
That was, so we established the company in February 2019. So my first mill would have been in February 2019 well, I wouldn't say to August. So
I think that's an incredibly quick time to go from basically that idea to actually having product on a shelf in Trinidad, where things has moved so slow. Everything moves so slow. Hayden could tell you how slow the EMAs move to get one document from one place to the next, right?
And you know what, Javed, it could have been quicker, but I will be very honest with everyone as we are speaking along the lines of managing careers and transitioning. It could have been quicker, but what kept me back was that I applied for geophysics jobs. Right. And I was awaiting feedback because I wasn't sure what direction my career as a geophysicist would have taken me at that point. So I kept it back, but it could have been way sooner. And putting a product on the shelf is not a simple process. You cannot do it from your home or from your kitchen. You have to put a lot of things in place. So I had to get a separate facility. I had to outfit that facility, bring it all up to Food and Drug their standard. I had to, do quite a few things just to get those products out there. So it could have been a bit sooner.
So you invented geo health then. I assume the geo comes from your geo background.
Yes.
To keep that part of you alive, right?
Yes, because I always have to remember where I came from, right?
Excellent. And I know you're somebody from the Marabella area, so you would have been particularly affected by Preceding and everything that happened there as well. And really, this is a great story here that we're seeing. Thanks a lot, Nicolette.
So Lynn, share with us your career journey. I see you've been in both conventionals and unconventionals, and you've worked in a number of different countries. Share with us a little bit your career journey.
Thanks very much, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel. My background was the complete opposite. I actually started with a martial arts school. I had a construction company, and I found a need for somebody to do the books. And I was the only one that was gonna, volunteer to do the books. So I I went to school in the evening. I learned accounting. Eventually, when my children came along, I put the martial arts school aside. But what happened was I ended up doing accounting for an oil and gas company. That is how I started out. That wasn't a problem. I ended up, I wasn't the greatest accountant, I'm not going to lie. So he ended up showing me how to pick tops. So I ended up doing structure maps. Then I went and I did my geological technologist diploma from Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. I finished that. I was still working in the industry, so still going to school in the evening, days, whenever I could, working at least 20 to 30 hours in the industry as well. And when I completed that, I said, well, let me just go and get my degree. Like, I can do this. And I think the thing was I still had that passion and that drive for the knowledge. So I went back to university, graduated from the University of Calgary, and have been working in oil and gas literally, for over 25 years. I think you've heard a number of very common themes here today, and that is to know yourself, be true to yourself, invest and believe in yourself, and also to stay flexible. So those are very key, in my opinion, to surviving any kind of downturn. And as many of the panelists have noted, oil and gas is very cyclical, but we are fortunate because we do have a foundation, whether it be, geoscience. You can put this, we are going into a massive energy transition, and a lot of the skills that we already possess, we can put that towards renewables, geothermal, mining, environmental awareness is heightened now. And so, who better to work as in the environmental field than geologists? I know so many geologists that are passionate about the outdoors. And so we have an opportunity to take the skills that we have and put them towards other things. Hydrology, as Hayden mentioned, there are like a multitude of things that we could put our efforts into if we stay flexible. The one thing I really wanted to stress today as well is that I think people should change their mindset to being a business owner. You are a business owner, and your business is actually your career, okay? And you are the product for your business. Now, what kind of product do you want to put forth to people? Like an outdated, dusty, lazy, whatever product, or do you want to stay current? Do you want to watch market trends and, be on top of where things are going? Another thing I really wanted to stress today too is time is such a critical factor, and it's something that we all waste quite a bit, right? And I know from being in Trinidad, you could easily spend up to 100 hours in your vehicle a week, like a couple hours to work, if you work in South or you work North, wherever, you spend a couple hours in your car every day, before the pandemic, of course. But what can you do with those hours? Can you put in an audiobook and teach yourself about, learn another language, learn another skill? Branding yourself is important. What do you want people to think about you when you're not in the room? What do you want to communicate to people about yourself? And that does come back to your passion. Myself, I don't want to be known as a rocket scientist. I'll leave that to Zav, right? What I am, I care about people. I care about synergies and how things work together. And I think that is critical. But we all need to be proactive in our career. The days of, we used to call them lifers, but the days of spending 30 years in one organization, that just doesn't really happen anymore. So you need to be proactive, market yourself. Again, stay flexible, keep learning so that when that opportunity does arise, you are in the best position to take advantage of it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn. That was excellent. Javed, have you got any questions?
So I have a couple of comments to this, and I mean, we've heard from we have some old-time entrepreneurs, talking to Derek number one here, right? We have brand new entrepreneurs like Nicolette, and we have people like Lynn and Derek Hudson who have been in the industry, still in the industry, and Shell and Touchstone are still two of the companies in Trinidad that are very, very bright things happening right now still, right? And we have Mr. Hayden as well, who is complementary to basically everything that goes on in the country, right? So some of my perspective, I work at Rams Logistics, and I've recently been put in charge of HR globally for our company. So that's about 400 employees in about 6 countries. And within that group, we've hired about a dozen chemical engineers, geologists, petroleum engineers, I think I said that already, but 4 different disciplines like that. And they work in procurement, contracts, proposals, HR, recruitment, and a couple areas like that. None of them in the core discipline really. And they've all been able to transfer skills quite easily, especially that scientific method that somebody was mentioning. I think the ability for a geoscientist to take multiple sources of sparse information and put it together in a model that makes sense. The ability to look at complex, when you read those technical papers that these geologists write that make no sense, and you have to do that in school, and you have to read these technical papers, and you have to simplify it a bit. The ability to take any complicated information, break it down, and translate that to the layman is a skill that I think most of us have as geoscientists that would be critical for any business. I'm sure Nicolette had to go through that, and Derek and all of you all have to go through that. And I think that's a key skill to build for all the people listening. I wanted to say as well, anybody who has questions, feel free to type them into the bar here, and, or put up your hand and we can take them as well.
Yes, we have 20 minutes, so I would like any of the listening audience to address questions to any of the panelists, please. This is about sharing with you all.
So while we wait for anybody to be brave enough to ask their questions, whether you guys want to put up your hand or type them in, either way, I'll still ask a couple of questions to the group here. So I'll go back to Derek Smith, but anybody could feel free to chime in, right? What you hear yourself, you talk about nightclubs and hotels and a couple of other businesses that you have. Where do you see, what industries or parts of industries do you see as having opportunities, whether in Trinidad or globally, that you think that somebody who is out of school, doesn't have much money in their pocket, could look into either to start a business or get a job in? Any thoughts?
Food business.
Okay.
Simple as that. And I say this because I'm in the food business, and I'm actually exploring more into the food business, which I realize people like to eat on the street. But once you do the business, I like what Lynn said, you must be true to yourself. You must, once you choose a particular direction, you will become successful. You have to stay true to yourself. You have to do research. You have to find the finance. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to do a lot of research. You can't just go and do it just like that, So I have been fortunate that, some of the geologists, some of the older heads who are looking for jobs now, I offer them jobs in my security business. I'm looking for supervisors. I'm looking for HR skill. So I ask them what is the HR skill, and they work. I know in some places, Derek will know this, that some geophysicists turn into HSSC people. In fact, when I went to Exxon, I'm still in the oil field business, don't get me wrong. Have been for the last 44 years, doing the consultancy now for 27 years. And I'm saying that my consultancy had 29 geologists at one point in time. And I am seeing, and the geologists will agree with me, the older heads particularly, that if we go Guyana, Exxon was my client. In fact, I did the consultancy with Exxon when they were here in Trinidad. I also did their security for them on land when they were doing the seismic survey. So I'm saying to you that there are opportunities on both sides. So I work for the upstream, I work for the downstream. I do security. All right, so what I'm saying to you is you have opportunities as you go along. You have to take the blinkers off. I am going to be very real here. People like myself who have done well in the oil industry and gas industry, found a lot of oil for many of my clients. I work for everybody. All right. So I'm not saying move away from it, but there's just no work. And when I went to Exxon in Guyana, they said, "Thank you, Mr. Smith." In fact, I met one of the guys who was on the rig with me. He said, "Thank you, Mr. Smith, we'll get back to you." So what is happening there, beside the lower level jobs, people like me with the expertise have to compete with people out of Houston who also need jobs. So we got to be real. We're not going to fool these graduates and tell them that, listen, you still have a future here when you don't have. Let's be real.
And Derek, I would say that there's opportunity to do both. I know many professionals who doctors or lawyers or engineers, and while they do their main profession, they do their food business on the side, or makeup, or hair, or whatever it is they do, and they're using the digital technology, which is the other thing I was going to say, that they actually have the advantage in, right? So they're using Instagram and Facebook and so on to promote these businesses, like Nicolette and other people, right? And one point I think it's clear. Digital technology is the future, right? I mean, we look at where we are right now. Now, the ability to understand basic coding and so on is going to become a skill that will be as basic as we use Microsoft Word and Excel, right? It might not apply to some of us and the older persons, but coming out of schools, I think now, anybody who is here, if you haven't done a course on coding and understanding that type of thing, then you should do it. There are lots of free ones online. You can pay for some as well, but that is something you should look into.
Javed,
yeah.
So Derek,
make a point.
I just wanted for you to explore a little bit about going into commercial. How did that happen, and what changes took place in your whole mindset with that job?
Well, I just want to go back. I want to make a point here, and this is a very important point. You all know, I mean, if you're reading and you're following the news, you realize that they're going into other sources of energy. You realize that a person who you never heard before, Mr. Musk, is now one of the richest people in the world. I'm into cars. I have the biggest collection of cars. And I can get an electric engine for any one of my cars. What does that tell you in the future? What does that tell you in the future? Let's be real, that the demand for gasoline and things is going to go away. That they already have hybrid cars. And the bigger countries, the first world countries, are going to go pell-mell into this, because it's better for the environment. You don't have emission and blah blah blah, and you could keep a spare electric engine in your car. There's an electric engine. Why do you think this man went from obscurity to being the second richest man in the world? So where are we heading? Let's be real. Where's coal heading? Coal is the only person I saw talking about coal is Trump, but coal is polluting the atmosphere and changing the climate. You know, and oil and gas is stockpiled in ships as we speak all over the world. When you have supply, I mean, maybe I did economics, I understand this, but when you have supply outstretching your demand, the price is going to fall. You'll get it cheap, and then all this expensive operation that you were doing before, hiring consultants, won't get work. Simple as that. I could tell you that I've been in Africa, Cuba, Venezuela, I mean, Suriname. I try to get in Guyana. They tell me, imagine I run the operation here successfully and couldn't get a job there.
So thank you, Derek.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So
Derek,
shift.
Derek, I'd like to ask Hayden, you threw out a comment about getting in with consultants. Could you give us some tips on how some young geoscientists could approach getting into some consultancies with some firms?
Hayden, you're mute.
Apologies, sorry. Yeah, I think it's important to network. We still do have a number of engineering consultancies, and there are, well, even fewer environmental consultancies. I suppose Derek will tell you the challenge that our consultants are facing at this point in time. And therefore, what you need to do is to get in there, offer them your services. I mean, do up your CV so people know what you are capable of. And you also need to be building your capacity so that consultants will know that, listen, you don't only know geology in terms of hardcore geology, in terms of what soil is there, or what rock is there, but you can also talk about geology and the environment. So you broaden your skills. I'm nowhere am I saying this is easier, and maybe in some cases, because there's a dearth of consultants in Trinidad and the Caribbean, maybe, I mean, people need to start partnering to develop their consultancy business, start developing businesses, which is where, I mean, I suppose, I mean, Derek is getting to. But whilst I want to come off, because I'm seeing a question here from somebody, Reshma, in terms of how do you know when it's time to pack up? Reshma, it depends, I think, on your age and your stage. For me, it was always time to pack up when I got bored, to start looking for what is going to be my new opportunity. So I didn't wait until, you know, I no longer had a job or I was no longer useful in an organization to move on. That happened on one occasion. On one occasion, I mean, it wasn't up to me at all. I mean, there was a change in political directorate, and they said they know the new group said they didn't want me. And that, listen, as you move up in organization, that is a possibility. Right? Understand that. I mean, as you get to the top of the organization, there's always the possibility that the politicians change and they no longer want you. So I've had to deal with that and again of course, I mean, you know, after the initial, I mean, shock, I mean, you have to get up and move on because you need to find something else to do. So when it's time to pack up, it depends on you and where you are. I think at the back of all of your minds, especially younger people, remember, at this time, you know, in the older people like Derek Smith days, I mean, they could have looked forward to pension. You know, and it was what they call it, pension. It was defined pensions. Defined pensions. Now, what you do is you contribute to a pension, and you have no idea what that will look like at the end. So therefore, you have to start putting your pension requirements in place.
Hayden, can I just chime in?
Say again?
Can I chime in?
Sure.
Yes. Just for that part with the pack up, well, I just, today I printed out a saying for my staff that I like to stick up little quotes all over the wall for my staff to read now and again, right? And it said that you don't know where the wind will blow, but what we do is we change the sails to adjust, right?
Wonderful.
So that is one thing that I kind of live by. I think to address Rishma's question when she asked, like, what were the factors if you had to pack up and transition? I like to be real with everybody because a lot of people come, they ask me, you know, about this transition, moving from a career to starting a business. And I'm now in the growth stage. I'm no longer in the startup, but the growth, right? And I tell them that it's not, I be realistic, it's not rainbows and butterflies. It takes a lot of sacrifices business people make that you have no idea. Mm-hmm. I remember standing on my feet in the production line when my workers weren't around for 12 hours straight, producing products that I had orders for the following day. And it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of hard work. But you have to find that self-motivation to drive you, to keep you going. You know what your purpose is, right? You know that you put something out there and you have a commitment. And that, it doesn't even allow you to pack up. It just allows you just to adjust, to suit. When I came out with the oat flour, I opened up a market, literally opened up a market. And my supplier became my competition. So therefore, I had to adjust and change my supplier and go into bringing out new, I mean, it was in the pipeline, but now I had to fast forward, bringing out new products. It's never resting up. One of my board directors told me the other day, because we are now transitioning to another phase. And she said, I tell her, I say, girl, I just not getting a rest. She said, no, you're not going to get a rest. it's going to keep going and it's going to keep going. And you know what? Ever since when I was a geophysicist, I had a sign sticking up say challenge accepted. And I love the challenges, just like what Hayden said. I loved it. I thrive for the challenges, bring them on. So, once you have that, you have that self-motivation, and then you can motivate your employees, you motivate others, you show them the journey, you let them know it is not easy. It is not, I can't boast of having 7 cars like Derek, or probably 100 cars, right? I can't boast of having 100 businesses all over the country. I can't boast of having 400 employees as yet, right? But I know my goal. I know I have my vision, and I'm working towards that. And you just have to stick to it like that.
Jennifer and Javed, just a short comment from me, taking off from what Hayden and Nicolette has just said. I think the thing that struck me is that there's some key themes, and it's good that you're recording it, coming out of the conversation along passion, commitment, opportunity. I think to Reshma's comment, I don't like to see it as knowing when to pack up, because that's a negative approach to the whole thing. It's simply working, and you continue to take the grind day in, day out, and when the opportunity arises, you go for it. You don't ever, there's no packing up. If you get to the stage where you're thinking about packing up, you actually will miss the opportunity because you're not in the mental frame to accept it. And some of the common themes that coming out of the conversation today, it's difficult to find a way of saying, how do you bottle it for people and sort of sell it as here's the key themes that you should take from it. But that sense comes through all the time in all the conversations that each one of you have brought to the table, all in a different sense, and that is what people need to take from it. I mean, there's another question there about what the Geological Society needs to do. I mean, it's simple. The Geological Society needs to stop thinking like geologists, because once you do that, you start putting a frame around what you've got to do. So it's good to have articles about interpretations and field trips or things like that. But you need to actually think. I mean, I don't like to use the word pivot. It's sort of one of the, from the time words become too run of the mill, then I try not to use it. So it's not pivot. They just simply need to look beyond that horizon that they have set for themselves and try to think about how to do things differently is what my suggestion would be.
I really like your comment, Derek, and we have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but there was something Lynn said that I really liked, where she said, you are your own business owner. It's up to you to stay relevant. It is up to you, and be flexible. That really is where we're at. For you to look at the market, see what is happening, look for little corners that you could fit in. It is up to you. Javed, just to wrap up, we are at 4.
Sure. So, I mean, I just wanted to say, Lynn, I mean, congrats again on all the success with Touchstone. You guys have done a really remarkable job reinvigorating a bit of onshore exploration, and we expect to see great things from you guys in the near future. Do you have any last comments before we close up?
I just wanted to say that what I look for when I'm hiring, I look for passion first. So if geology is your passion, stick with that and you will succeed, right? If geology is not your passion and you're just looking for a big paycheck, it's probably not going to work out for you. Find your passion, invest in that, and you will succeed. The other thing is cognitive ability and emotional intelligence. I'm not looking always just for the best geologist. I want somebody who is passionate and energetic and flexible and can, change gears, because you don't know where your journey is going to take you. I like to think of life as a river. There's so many branches, a deltaic, dendritic river, right? That could take you anywhere. As long as you are happy, I think that's the key. If you're passionate, you will succeed. And just to wrap up, a 1,000-mile journey, which is your career, it starts with one single step. So make use of your time and follow your passion.
All right, thank you very much, Lynn. I wanted to say that in our case, similarly, we hire for attitude first, right? Obviously, you need to have a certain level of cognitive ability, but we hire for attitude first. If we hire somebody, if I'm hiring a geologist and I say, we're bringing you in, but I want you to learn everything there is about cranes and forklifts and trucks. Can you go and research something that you've never really learned about before, but use all that technique? But the geology and stuff is probably harder than anything else, any of these business things, but it takes a different sort of person to go about it. I just wanted to address quickly what Valini's question there about what the GSTT can do a little bit more. I think the GSTT helps to give visibility to a lot of our members in a sense, because if the member, so there are some very active members who are in field trips, they're publishing, they're involved in magazine, they're involved in different sub-society groups like social media and so on. And when those persons get visibility from persons like Lynn and the Derricks and Nicolettes, now you're in the spotlight of people who could potentially hire you, right? So what I would say to all the persons that's listening, try to make yourself stand out, whatever it is, volunteer a bit more. Writing something is like very important. Whether it's an article, you write on Facebook, you write LinkedIn, you write a technical presentation, the GSTT. Hopefully we'll have a conference next year. Write something about something for that conference. It doesn't matter what it is. Get yourself out there and be recognized. And that, I think, is one of the ways the GSTT could really help the younger membership stand out. Adrian.
Yes,
you are ready to close up, sir.
Indeed,
Yes.
we'd just like to thank all the panelists for their insights. And of course, all of this is feeding from their experience. So some truly remarkable stories. And we hope that this is not the end with your relationship with GSTT. We hope to continue to seek out that knowledge and experience, and especially in these trying times, because oil and gas is really not where it used to be. And of course, we definitely need your input to help steer the next generation through what geoscience is going to look like. And I like what Mr. Romano had said, where geoscience is not all about oil and gas. And it can be, because oil and gas is not going to be here forever. And we really need to utilize that geological skill for the next generation. So we like to thank all the panelists. Thank you very much. And again, continue to support the GSTT. Right now, before we actually end, we actually have Reshma Miraj, who is part of the seminar and the workshop committee, who's just going to give us a one-pager of upcoming events. So thank you very much again.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Adrian, could you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks.
So want to thank everyone for this successful workshop today on managing your career. It was a really good virtual workshop. Usually we are accustomed having these things face to face, but I think we managed to overcome those hurdles and work through just online. So to start off, I wanted to thank our main presenters today, Bunny Rambachan, Miranda Foon, Dr. Miranda Foon, Miss Stacey Charles, our panelists, Lynn, Derek, Nicolette, Derek and Hayden, our moderators, Stefan, Alicia, Adrian, Javed, and Jennifer. Thank you very much for your support today. And by extension, the GSTT board, its members and participants. And I'd like to thank the organizing committee who volunteered to assist with the planning of this workshop, and actually on the planning committee to support Stefan, who leads the planning committee, and he is the president of GSTT. So I'd like to thank Stefan, Jennifer, Keisha, Mark, Valini, Pooja, and Alicia. And this would not be possible without our sponsors as well. So we thank Shell, BHP, and BP for their support on this workshop and sponsorship, and to allow others, our members, and who are unemployed and facing challenges to be able to access this workshop today. just a few reminders of some of the upcoming events that we have. So we have a field trip that's being framed by Curtis Archie on the Erin section. And this has, as it is described in the treaties, so look out for that. That might be around June. We have technical sessions being set up as well for April, May, and June. We have a short course in that's paired with SBTT, or Fellow Society, and that will be given by Baker Hughes on the 25th to 26th of June. It's on pore pressure prediction, so remember to sign up. We also have the board having discussions and forming that committee for the conference next year, the 2022 GSTT conference. And also I'd like to encourage, participants today and members to volunteer. Today we talked about having additional skills and talents and stuff like that. And sometimes only when you challenge yourself, try something, be part of one of these committees, that you might develop another skill or use one of your talents that you have. And that's something great to put on your resume as well, right? So we would like to encourage you all to join us and be part of this. So thank you all, and I will hand over to Adrian.
Okay, yeah, so thank you very much. It's been quite a long day, but truly insightful. And again, thank you for all the speakers and everyone who's put in their time in organizing this career workshop. We want to say thank you and encourage you again, volunteer for all GSTT or some of GSTT's activities. And yeah, we wish you farewell and continue being safe during these times. So thank you very much and take care.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening now.